Hey everyone, welcome to the Barely Normal Wet Shaver. That would be me, Doug Bear. So today I'm going to do a beginner, a lather, and an advanced technique. And I want to start first off with the beginner portion of this video. How many of you all know John from the Latherhog? Probably everybody. I mean, between the content he does on videos with YouTube and Instagram lives and Instagram posts and Facebook posts, and then also his podcast, he's got a lot of content. He does an awful lot. Well, I don't know how many of you know he's been on a quiet journey to learn how to use one of these bad boys right here. And he's done so far, I believe, 4 live Instagrams. He did his first one with Ross McBee, who gave him some great pointers. And then a couple weeks later, he did a video with Corey, the chief, and learned some additional pointers. And then did 2, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think he did 2 others without assistance. But I noticed that he has what I call the deer in the headlight moment, or those brain freeze moments. And boy, do I remember the exact same thing. When we conversed and I sent him a video, some ideas to try and help him, he said he had to admit that he's allowed a lot of time to lapse between each one of those sessions, so he forgets. And that's pretty common. I think if you think like if you've ever taken music lessons, and any of us who have taken that lesson, the sheet music, taken it home, put it away, and never practiced, and then went to your next class with the teacher, and you go, oh my gosh, this is gonna be bad. Well, it's the same thing. If you don't practice, if you don't work on it, you're obviously gonna forget. So what I wanted to do was just try to simplify things for beginners that might help, so that you don't have that extensive, I don't know what to do kind of feeling. Number one, let's start with the grip. So here's what I do. I put the razor into a wide V position like this. I'll take my 2 fingers, my index finger and middle finger, put it at the top, my thumb just underneath it, and then I take my 3rd finger and put it on the tail and rest it, and then I take my pinky and push it up against the tail, and I find that to be extremely stable. It doesn't rock back and forth this way. It doesn't move around that much. If I lock my wrist and hand in position, it just works really, really well. And from this standpoint, I find that the toe and the heel stay flush against the face when I have this grip. Now, sure, you could try this, and if it works for you, that's great. Or you could try 3 in front. And what my problem with this one is that for some reason it's extremely stable going up and down, but I find myself doing that, so my angle gets screwed up. This just works for me. That grip just works. So whatever you decide, I think that it is important to try and get a good, stable grip. And what I like about this is I use this for everything. That's right, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd passes. That's my grip for all of them. I'll show what I do on the 3rd grip that makes it, if you wonder how I can do that. So before I do that though, let's talk about when you're going to address your face with your left hand or your right hand. Now, I like the ambidextrous approach. I feel that you get more proper angles without having to contort and try to figure out all the different shapes in your face. So I take left hand, left side, right hand, right side for the downward pass. Then for the across the grain, there's really only 2 things that you need to know in the cheek region. And that is, if you're going to start from your mouth and you're going to go back to your ear, you're going to stay right side, right hand, or in this case, left side, left hand, like that. Or if you're going to go from the ear to the mouth to do your across grain pass, you'll reach across and use your right hand to do your left side and your left hand to do your right side. Okay? Now, aside from that, the next pass that you might try is a south to north pass. How do I do that? Well, you want to make it edge leading in the upward angle. So, same grip. I just turn my wrist and now I'm edge leading and coming up to do my face. Now again, I use, for the third pass, or that south to north pass, I'm approaching my face with my left hand but shaving on the right side, right hand on the left side. Why? Because the angle, again, I'm very smooth here against my neck, and if you notice, I'm angled very similar to my chin. And when I get back in here, it's easy to get into position to follow my jawline as well. So that's why I like to change the hands. I don't have to change wrist positions or different degrees of angle and things of that nature. It's just very, very simple. So if you're starting, one grip for everything, I think helps a lot. Just remembering that you're using your left hand, left side for downward passes and for your cross grain going lip to ear. And if you are going the opposite way on a cross grain from ear to lip, then you're going to reach across and put your right hand on your left side and your left hand on your right side. That's it. I hope that's not complicated. I hope that's something that is easy to understand. Okay, the next thing is talking about routine and pattern. If you've heard of Dr. Matt did a really neat statement at one point in time about routine with reference to the stallion. He said that guy will start and stop in almost the same amount of time, and if you used a stopwatch and stopped it at any point in time between one shave and another shave, he'd probably be pretty much in the exact same spot. That's a routine. That is a pattern. And you got to think like you would with your DE. Whatever you've established that works for you with your DE, most of those same strokes will work, and the same pattern will work with a straight razor. I don't know why, we all just go into that moment of what do I do next kind of thing, and you start sporadically going at your face from different areas. That's not necessary. Think of it exactly the same as you would with a DE. Now sure, there's some things that you can do with a DE that you can't do with a straight razor, and there's some things you can do with a straight razor that you can't do with a DE. So you'll find those little nuances, but overall that will simplify it quite a bit. All right, so I'm going to take a break and get ready to go, and then we'll talk about the lathering approach. Okay, back. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use A&E's, Sharkey's L'Orange Verte or Vert. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but regardless, this is a really nice kind of orange spice. There's tangerine, there's bergamot, there's orange, there's black pepper, there's neroli, there's patchouli, there's oak moss, on and on and on. And what I get out of it is a really nice spicy cologne-like orange scent. And I love it. And it's a nice strong, like 7+ in the scale of scent strength. But I also feel like I'm in the mood to mix it up. So I'm going to take some Captain's Reserve from Kelly at Black Ship, and that is more of a Creed Aventus, black currant, pineapple, all the things that you find in the Aventus. And when I mix those two together, it really kind of creates what I would say is a little bit more sophisticated Creed Aventus. It just darkens it a little bit, but also adds a little bit more spice to it, and it's really, really nice. So I talk about this off and on. I totally enjoy mixing scents. I think it's a blast. It just takes your entire soap collection and doubles it, maybe triples it in some cases. In fact, I know it does because I do all kinds of different things with it. So it just adds to the hobby. So all right, what I'm going to do is, using this very awesome brush by somebody who's no longer doing it anymore, Icy Shaves out of Scotland. I don't know that I've ever mentioned this, but this brush has kind of a soft spot for me because my family on my mother's side is the Blairs in the Atholl, Scotland area. They're one of the few families that can actually commission a military. And I'm part of that family, so don't mess with me, people. Just don't mess with me. Anyways, so that is this really, really cool handle that I love very much. And this has a Timberwolf synthetic knot, which works beautifully, 24 millimeter. All right, so I am going to, whoops, wet the brush. And then I'm going to shake it out. And then I am going to start with the puck, pretty well dry. And I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 seconds, that's plenty. All right, I'll wet my face. And we'll add the lather. And I can tell already that, even though it may not look like it, that's probably more than I should have put in. So, next, oh crap, forgot to mix it up. So what I'm going to do is I put a little of that Captain's Choice in this small container, and I just moved it around, kind of like what DK does. You just kind of swirl it around a lot. Now you could use this in a bigger container, it really doesn't matter. I put just enough water to kind of cover it, less than half for sure, maybe a quarter of the cap. Screw it on, shake it up for a few seconds, and what this will do is it'll work kind of like an artist's palette. If you put two soaps in one, you're kind of stuck with how much you get of each. But if you separate them, if you think of like an oil painter's palette or a painter's palette, he can pull a little bit from one color and mix it up to get what he wants ultimately. That's what this does as well. Okay, so now I've shaken that up. I've got that pretty high in there with enough froth for me to just add that for scent and also to accelerate the timeline to make a lather. All right, so I'm just going to take and swirl the brush in that for a second. Paint that on. And yeah, man. Oh, is that a nice combination? Just adds a little bit more spice to the Creative Ventus. Darkens it up a touch. Gives it more of a cologne-y feel. Or smell, rather. Now, if you like where you are on the scent, then you can just add a little bit of water if you want and dip that in some water. I'm going to add a little bit more of the Creed. Paint that in. Man, is this silky smooth. And that is pretty much done, but I'm going to add a little more water because I like mine thinner than this. So, dip that in, and there's that nice high sheen and low density type of lather that wets my whistle, what I like. All right, now here we go. So adjust the face. Oh yeah, you know what? I'll talk about this razor. I've been showing it off. This is actually a gold dollar. I modified this myself. I like a little barber's notch, or maybe what some people might call a Spanish tip in this case, but whatever it is, I just like the shape. And then I also added kind of that notch to the scale here as well and put that together. And I love it. I love the way it shaves. It's been a blast to do this. This is kind of like the carpenter's utility tool. It isn't the prettiest. It isn't the fanciest, but it just fits in my hand nicely, and I take a little bit of joy in the fact that I modified it myself and did it myself, right from the terrible geometry through to honing and shaping. So that was really a lot. This was a fun project. Okay, so that said, you're going to just come in. This is the way I do it. I come into my face with a toe to approach just below the hair of my sideburns. Hinge, bring it in. And that's how I get started. Okay, so I'll continue downward stroke. And there we go. All right, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of this pass to show, but that is a simple pattern that works for me, and that's the same pattern I use with the DE. All right, I'll finish this shave on the first and second passes, and then I'll be back to show the inverted pass. Okay, now the dreaded inverted pass. The one that I learned from Eric of Adventures in Wet Shaving, and thank you, Eric. He's really quite a good teacher, from beginner to any level. His double camera work that he shows, different angles, really is a great tool to learn from. So if you are not familiar with Eric of Adventures in Wet Shaving, give him a look, see, and see what you think of his way of teaching and technique. But I have a little bit of a different challenge in that I have to go strictly from the back all the way through to the front. And I've kidded with Kai about this, and that you know, he also has some growth areas that way, and I say, you got to try the inverted pass, and he's like, no way, man. It's really not that challenging or that dangerous. What you do is you have to start in, and I'm sure you've seen some other shavers do this, but you start with the toe down. Grip is still exactly the same, nothing changes, it's just you convert the toe downward. And I'll try to show this as best as I can. I don't need to see it because I can do it all by feel, but what I need to do is get this part as flat as possible, because I have more than a 90-degree angle between the top of my chin line and under here, and I have some sunken areas. So I have to do some stretching, and that's the hardest part. But if you work the toe flush against the skin as your primary point of contact and you use a light touch, you'll find that you can do it quite well. So here we go. Come down through. And then I'll stretch up here. And I'm using light buffing strokes, but it works very well for me. And then you can see I got it all for the most part. And then I'll come through and finish this top line, which also has some star patterns and some added growth that goes back the same way, so I have to come through this way. And there it is. So that's the pass. So the key to that pass really is nothing more than trying to get this as level as possible. The way I do that is by dropping down and stretching that skin a little bit, and then the contact as smooth as I possibly can, so that the toe as well as the rest of the blade that is in contact with the face is flush. If you feel everything is flush in contact, then you'll get through it really, really well. All right, so that's it for this one. I did want to ask you guys, for those of you who watch, if you'd be interested in a video on honing, not exactly honing, but what to look for under a magnifier, a loop, whatever you use for magnification. What am I looking for as far as scratch pattern, as far as width of the edge being honed, etc., so that you know you've got a bevel set, so that you know you've got the full scratch pattern of the stone that you're working on before you move to your next progression. If you're interested in that, it's going to be a challenge for me, to be honest, because I don't know how I'm going to photo it, but I tried to pass it off to Dr. Matt, because the question has come up a number of times to me, and I think it's a great one that everyone talks about, you know, looking under glass, but doesn't really say what they're looking at and looking for. And I know for many of the beginners, that's something that you have to kind of learn the hard way. And I'd like to make that a little bit easier for you if you're interested. So let me know in the comments below. And until the next time, peace out, boys and girls.